The sacred journey starts here. Indigenous Pride.
To be here, and thank you everyone who has joined us for this evening. She Josie Raffalito Yansha, Bilagana Nishlito, Hapso Bashashin, Ado Bilagani Dashachedo, Turkoje Dashanale. My name is Josie Raffalito. I am originally from Rema, Navajo in New Mexico, which is 2 hours west of Albuquerque. But I currently live on traditional Haudenosaunee land in Buffalo, New York with my wife. I identify as a queer Diné woman and am honored to serve as a program director with Indigenous Pride. And yes, have been here for the past 2 years now, working alongside board members who are committed, determined, and just, making sure that they're creating space with and for our LGBTQIA plus community members and relatives. So it's a great place to be, great community to be a part of, and just really, again, welcome everyone for coming back for our conversation this evening, which has, just now thinking about how historic of a month this has been for Indian country, I think that since we last connected to promote this conversation, there have already been some updates. And like Ellery said, we now have the first Native American woman serving as Secretary of the Department of Interior. This is just, I'm sure, again, across everybody's news feeds online, there is just a lot of excitement, a lot of gratitude, and just a true, just strength that you could see everyone was pulling from and wanting to celebrate Madam Secretary Debra Haaland from Laguna Pueblo. So, and I think that, some of these exciting changes came at a really great time. There with the challenge of living through this global pandemic, it's important to take time to acknowledge and, again, celebrate these emerging leaders who are in new and exciting roles. And so, that's what we get to do this evening with our guest speakers. So, again, we'll be listening to and learning from Arizona State Representative Jasmine Blackwater-Nygren, who was the youngest person to be elected into this state position. And, Jasmine was invited, we'll probably hear a bit more about this, to fill a vacant seat after former Representative Arlando Teller, who's our second guest, was tapped by the Biden administration to serve as the Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Office of Tribal Affairs at the U.S. Transportation Department. So both Jasmine and Arlando, they'll share a bit about their journeys, offer some encouraging notes about leadership development, and, just really have an open conversation about how we all need to work together to support our communities and relatives. And when we say our communities, that means everyone, including our Navajo LGBTQIA plus family members. So we are very excited to get the conversation started. So let's go ahead and invite our two guests to introduce themselves. So first, we'll have Arlando introduce yourself. Go ahead and jump right in. Oh, we have you on mute, Arlando. Sorry about that.
There we go. You hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Eshik Edo Shadanash, Arlando Teller Ninja. Nash Ejadana Tachi Inchlan to head Lini Bashichin. Turajini Dashichedo, Shin Dashinella Ekut Adenensle. Ado Shma E Clarata Nan Holganda. Shma E Istashlandan Nalganda. Shaja A Anderson Teller Holganda. A Nashasha Tindan Nalganda. Akonda.
All right, well, just bear with us. This is the new platform that we're using. Hopefully the music and the fun images drew you in and kept you ready for the discussion. So might just be having a couple of technical difficulties, but I'm sure Arlando will be back in a second. So maybe we'll go ahead and ask you, Jasmine, to introduce yourself while we get Arlando back online.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, it's Jasmine Blackwater-Nygren Yinisha. She set the cheat as Kananet Nasha. Aro she hashkushni nisha. She him bashichin. No the adana etkachini dashichedo, but akni dashanella. Aro Bettina ash inigi Buvan Nygren Willia. Aro Shema Geraldine Begay Willia. Aro Shaja John Blackwater Jr. Willia. Aro Shemasanado, Shache Gladys do Charlie Begay Willia. They set the cheat as Kandant Naga. Aro Chanela Asanto, Chanela Castine, Mary Blackwater do John Blackwater Senior William and they tosa kanade naga aro akut ego dene asana nishla. So good evening, everybody. My name is Jasmine Blackwater-Nygren. I'm from Red Mesa, Arizona, newly appointed Arizona State Representative, and looking forward to our evening here. And also just wanted to re-welcome Mr. Teller. I think you dropped off a bit, and so we didn't catch the rest of your introduction. So if you just wanted to continue.
Yeah, Representative, again, Shea Arlando Teller Ninchia, Ejidanet Hachit Ninchlanto Headlini Bashin, Kurachini Dashiche Doshin Dashinale Ekut Audenenchla. I'm originally from Chinle. I am a graduate from Chinle High School, 1991. Go Wildcats. And I was the former state representative for Legislative District 7 and currently serving as a appointee for the Biden administration as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs for the U.S. Department of Transportation. So I am very honored and proud to call Al Ray a wonderful friend, younger brother, and also be part of this wonderful organization that voices concerns, advocates for equality, and addresses challenges that affect not only our Dene brothers, sisters through the LGBTQI community, but also throughout the entire community of Navajo Nation and the 4 states. Additionally, to those brothers and sisters that live in urban communities throughout the United States and the world, we are sincerely proud of you for doing what you do, and whatever that is, know that the brothers and sisters here on Navajo certainly send prayers and thoughts to you, each and every one of you. And so I appreciate this opportunity to sit with my little sister, Representative Jasmine Blackwater-Nygren. I'm very proud of her. She jumped into a pool of water where there are many sharks, many dangers, but she has navigated. She has drank out of the fire hydrant. From what I hear from my former colleagues, they are very impressed. Though I think Ms. Nygren and I both stand on the shoulders of other Native legislators that have been elected before us. And so they have paved a way. I'm thinking of Senator Jack Jackson Sr., Senator and Representative Albert Hale, Senator Jack Jackson Jr., and others who have paved a way for us to not allow the government in Phoenix forget who we are, what we stand for, and how we live, regardless of our orientation, regardless of our skin color. So I think it's really important to converse about that, as well as knowing that these opportunities that we are humbly participating in and partaking in is available for all youth, young people. When I say young people, I'm talking more than 50 years old. We're still young at heart. So with that, I sincerely appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you to both of you for your dedication and for serving as strong voices for your families, your communities, and our Navajo Nation and the U.S. I mean, it's an incredible moment, and we just, are excited to have you with us this evening and looking forward to learning a bit from one another. So we'll go ahead and, we have a couple of questions that we have for each of you and both of you, but I'd also welcome folks who are tuned in online on Facebook. If you have questions throughout the conversation, feel free to put those comments or questions there. And at the end of towards the end of our discussion, we'll go ahead and pull that up. So we want to make sure that you all have a chance to to chime in as well. So, Arlando, the first question is for you. I mean, just hearing from Alray and others, and of course, like reading about you, you're a strong Dene and a very proud member of the LGBTQIA plus community. And so although it was an honor to serve with the Arizona State Legislature, it probably had its challenges, just like any position, any job, but especially in a conservative state. So can you share some advice with young people who might want to follow in your footsteps, and maybe how to work together with those who might have some different views, but how you can still work together to make positive change?
Thank you for that question, Shadeja. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with listeners, my younger brothers and sisters, my journey. And the journey was, of course, not easy. There are challenges, mountains and valleys from point A to point B. And I literally took the scenic route, meaning I enjoyed all the highs and all the lows. I've learned to not only listen to my elders and people who literally care for me, my well-being, but also comprehended. That's a key word. Listening and comprehension are two different things, but they are valuable to your personal, professional, spiritual growth. So when I comprehended how much they cared for me and how much they said, no, wesh, yaja, don't do this, don't do that. And in all honesty, of course, as a young person, I thought, it's not going to affect me. Well, being who you are can affect a lot of things around you. But I did not allow those perceptions and judgment cloud my goal setting. Goal setting is a habit forming activity. You set a goal every morning. Mine is making my bed every morning. As long as I make my bed, I know I accomplished one thing throughout the day. And I've always practiced that. So throughout high school, throughout university at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and at each of the modes that I worked in, airport, transportation planning, transit, what have you, I literally was not swayed by the perception of me being gay. Particularly in the transportation industry, a good old boy system when I was coming through, cutting my teeth, if you will, through the 1990s and early 2000s, before Ellen came out, if you will. So I honestly did not affect that. Of course, I had challenges. I was, felt like I had a scarlet letter on my forehead. But what really brought me out of that darkness is becoming and making friends that knew who I am, who I was, and what I'm about. And having confidants is very important. These confidants in your life did not measure or graded or counted the number of times I gave them credit or the number of times that they helped me. They didn't count that. They were just there for me. And it's really hard to find that group of friends. They call them tribes now. It's really hard to find that. But once you do, just know that there are people out there that like you for who you are. Like you for the energy that you bring to them, the happiness that you make them feel. And so it's good to find a confidant. I also believe in mentorships. And my mentor is former Senator Jack Jackson Jr. And he has guided me, advised me. He's gone after me, but we both have celebrated the successes in my life and his life, but also the trials and tribulations in my life. So having a confidant, having a mentor are two different things. And making sure that you keep your eye on the goal. Again, my goal was doing the best that I can. And if you look at the trajectory of my career, literally, I have to thank my mother for it. I was living in San Francisco 10 years ago. That woman flew to San Francisco and called me up one morning and said, "I'm bringing you home, son." And so there's a long story about that. And when I came home, she said, "These are the goals I want you to continue." And so sharing my goals with my entire family, they didn't hear it. They literally said, "We're going to watch your mouth as you speak. So we can understand and see the words that come out of your mouth, come from your heart, come from your belly button." And I didn't understand that. I said, "Belly button?" My mom said, "That is your source of power, your belly button, son. For a woman, it's where the uterus is. That's the source of power." All this was said in Navajo. And I said, "Okay." So I told them my goals. And wouldn't you believe, within 5 years, I was already going down to the state capitol. I become friends with Jack Jackson Jr., Representative Jennifer Benally, and going to Santa Fe, going to Washington, D.C., making my mark, letting the people who are making the decisions on our behalf here at the Hogan level that someone is watching and we need to speak up. Regardless of my orientation, of my skin color, we are still five-fingered people. And so I worked my tail off to ensure that I kept contacts with the senators, the congressional delegation, with folks in DC, as well as folks in the capital of the two states. I made sure that they knew that our transportation connectivity here on Navajo and tribal nations are just as important anywhere else. And so I think I'm going about in a very long-winded way, but I think for our youth and our young LGBTQI, do not believe that you are lesser than someone else because of someone you love. You are not at all. In fact, you are the sacred person. You listen to the elders, the traditional ceremonies, and the medicine men. It is us as LGBTQI that are sacred when we go into a ceremony. That's what I was told. That, bring your son Arlando to the ceremony, let him, and I would sing. So I would be participating as a part of the songs and knowing that, I'm just not one person. There's two people that are equally shared in my my conscious, and it's being valued by the traditional ceremonial people. And so I think just know that if you want to make a difference in this world, start with yourself. As RuPaul said, if you want to love someone else, you got to love yourself first. Can I get an amen up in here?
That RuPaul.
Thank you so much for that question.
Yeah, thank you, Arlando. I think that was just a beautiful way of weaving in, some of the really foundational pieces that have helped you in your journey. And I love your comments about how it was a scenic route, and that's okay, because there are so many of us as adults, in our younger selves, in our cousins, that they think that there's only one path and that's the way that you're going to go, which is wonderful for people who have it figured out already. But there are other adventures for others, and I think it's just important to say that is totally fine. And also your comments about finding confidants. In my mind, I was like, is he saying confidence? But I was like, okay, confidants. Yes, absolutely. And so, you know, surrounding yourself with people who have that, you know, positive energy and belief, I think is always, you know, something that's a helpful reminder for those who are ready to set goals and need that support around them to make it happen. So thank you. And Jasmine, I'd be curious to hear a bit from you as well, and just, you know, hearing how you draw strength from your identity as a Diné woman to serve in these, you know, really high level leadership roles. Just, you know, want to open that up for you to kind of share a little bit about that strength.
Great. Well, thank you again for having me and allowing me to join this conversation this evening. I know it's kind of been a long time coming. We had it scheduled and then we had to cancel because I had a scheduling conflict, last minute scheduling conflict. So I'm just very happy that we were all able to do this and that we're here now and that we're all able to gather and kind of share this space. And it's kind of a hard question, right? Because I've been a Navajo Diné woman my entire life. And so to think about what that means to me is kind of a weird question, because it's like, well, I've been this person my entire life. And so when I think about that question, I think about, you know, what it meant to be as a young Navajo girl all the way into adolescence, young adulthood, and now adulthood. And so I think something that really resonates with women is Navajo women, I feel like, have always been celebrated in Diné culture, it feels like, all the way from birth, all the way from, you know, receiving your mother's clan and knowing that someday you're going to give your mom's clan to your child. And so I think there's always been that mutual respect for our mothers, for our women, and that has always been present in our communities. And in my family, I mean, certainly we love my grandma and we love my great-grandma because of her clan and what she gave our family. And so as matriarchs, I think that ever so proudness and presence of being a clan mother and being able to give your own children your clan has always been such a strong part of Diné livelihood and just our general outlook on our lives. And then also, you know, the Kinalda ceremony, which establishes you as a young woman in this place that we call this world. You know, it establishes us, it identifies us to the holy people that, you know, we are now women in this community. And so there's always been that long history and that long presence and proudness of being a Navajo woman. And I've always been proud of that. And yes, I did have a Kinalda, and my grandma is Navajo, and she's Hushklishni. So I'm always very proud of my clan, and that we can trace that clan back generations and generations, and a lot of families can. And there's always great pride in that. And so very happy to know that someday I will also be giving that clan, hopefully, to my future children. So I think that's one aspect of it, right? Being a matriarch, coming from a matriarchal society, having that that pride in being Navajo and being a woman. And then I think beyond that, I think for me, I think stepping into this role. So when I was asked if I was interested in the appointment, my husband and I, we made like a ton of phone calls. We talked to family, we talked to relatives, we talked to close friends. And we also talked to a few different previous former Navajo leaders and other people. And one of the things that was shared with me, and I know other Navajo women have said this, so I don't want to take the credit for this, but something that was shared with me and something that really resonates with me is this idea that the Navajo woman, right, sometimes we're told our place is in the home. We're told our place is to take care of our kids, to take care of our family. And that's true. As a woman, you're supposed to take care of your family and your kids. But in this role, in any leadership role, a woman is still taking care of the kids, the family, in that our kids still need good schools to go to, in that our families still need safe and, drivable roads to travel on, and that we still need access to healthcare. And that all relates to, taking care of the family unit. And so I think when we talk about the role of what a Navajo woman is or should be, yes, I'm taking care of the family. Yes, I'm taking care of people at the family level, but that's also what I'm doing in this new role as a legislator, as a leader. And so when I think about how I draw strength from that role, that's something I like to think about, how Navajo women were transforming that role. Yes, we're taking care of the family, but in another sense, in that, we need roads, we need education, we need healthcare. And so when you think about that fundamental value of taking care of the family, it can be translated to many, many things. And so stepping into this position, that's something that I hold near and dear to my heart. And I think that's something that a lot of other young women can resonate with. And even older women, right? You think about some of our older Navajo women leaders who have served in different capacities as legislators, as councilwomen. You think about like Annie Dodge Wanika, like she was just, she had a huge impact on our community, and she was a woman, and she was very aware of her space and her presence as a Navajo woman, and she owned that. And so when I think about being a woman, there's, yes, immense pride as a matriarch, but also pride in that what my legacy will be. And so I hope that answers your question, but that's kind of been my response to that question. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, it was really insightful to kind of hear how kind of those traditional tones of like, this is your assumed role, but being able to expand on that and be like, well, that can mean something a little different today. And I like how, it's alluding to also thinking about not just our own children who we birth, but those that make up our community, those that, need that protection and support, and those who haven't even been born yet. So thinking about future generations and how your work is going to impact that and leave a legacy. So thank you for sharing and, kind of giving your perspective there. And I'm sure there will be different things that weave in and out in these other conversations. And so, I would be, with Indigenous Pride, I've only been a part of the organization for 2 years. There's been so much work that has been done leading up to establishing it, leading up to starting the conversations in our homes, and then larger community gatherings, and really talking about the need for inclusion, for equality, for equity. And so, with the support of Indigenous Pride, the Navajo Nation Council is now working to amend the Indigenous Marriage Act to legalize marriage equality, which would be incredible. Some lawmakers are also working to draft the Indigenous Equality Act that will protect our LGBTQIA plus relatives from discrimination on Navajo. So just be curious from both of you if you have any comments on that or thoughts on, why this type of law would be necessary in our communities and why.
So if you don't mind, Representative Nygren, I can start. I believe the Equality Act and amending the current statute is important for one thing. We are all equal, and there are no people that should feel superior or dominant, regardless of your partner, of your orientation, of your age, or your occupation. Regardless of any of that, specifically on Navajo, We have the beautiful Navajo Nation foundation that we were all raised on. The Yi-ya, Dojit Ida, or all the other beautiful songs, Hajonjito, all those ceremonies. I'm sure the majority of us have experienced the beauty of our culture. And our culture is so powerful that we should respect all things, animals, birds, and plants. And why not LGBTQI? I just read in an article earlier today, and this may have nothing to do with this conversation, but I thought this was very curious, that in France, that the legislators in France had amended their law to allow single LGBTQ members of the community to adopt or to be surrogate parents. And that means a lot, because there are a lot of Navajo children who deserve a loving home, regardless if mom and mom or dad and dad are their parents. Having that foundation of home and love, is important to a child's mental, physical, spiritual upbringing, their foundation. So having an Equality Act that allows LGBTQ to marry and to have that partnership legalized, legal partnership, is very important to a community. The community is Navajo Nation. And I just hope I hope the legislators believe and feel the same way I do. And I know they're not 100%. I know that. I'm not, Pollyanna about this. Realistically, there are legislators who are not friends with LGBTQ. They say they are, but at the end of the day, it really showcases. Nevertheless, we as legislators, or we as community leaders, we have to encourage time for change. And I also would like to see that change when it comes to the president of the Navajo Nation. Why not have an LGBTQ president or a Navajo Diné president? One of these days, and that will be awesome. As Representative Nygren mentioned, our matrilineal, matriarchal society has that in her home teaching. The woman takes care of the home. She is the neck of the man. That's what my mom said to me once. She tells the man which way to look. She twists his, so she made fun like that. But she said that's true. A woman takes care of the home and also tells the man what needs to do by pulling his head around. She is the neck of the family. So I think it's time for change. I really do. It's time. Thank you.
Thank you, Arlando. Jasmine, do you have any additional thoughts to share?
I just want to thank you for that question, and also thank Mr. Teller for his response. I think it was spot on in that our Navajo people deserve, equality in this, and that it's not just symbolic. If anything, we learned with the 2015 court decision that, marriage for all is more than just symbolic. There are actual laws and benefits that go along with that. Everything from, receiving tax credits to insurance benefits. And for the Navajo Nation to recognize that is huge. Navajo Nation employs hundreds of people. And so when you think about the real benefits of having this law recognized on the nation, it is so important, not just in that, yes, they deserve it because we all deserve it, but also in that they deserve those same real life benefits that all other married people receive. And so I just had to add that last point. And I think it's true that a lot of people look to the Navajo Nation for guidance, other tribes. And that's very true. That's something that I'm learning very quickly here at the legislature is a lot of tribes want to know what Navajo thinks. A lot of people want to know where does Navajo stand on this certain issue. And so if Navajo isn't leading the way in this, it really creates this idea that we are very anti equality. And that's just not true, because I don't think Navajo people themselves feel that way. And so it's time that our legislators, our leaders really step up to the plate. And I know it got close. It got close back in, I'm going to say 2008. And so I'm not sure if that's like the right date, but I believe it was sometime at some point in 2008 that the Dene Marriage Equality Act was getting pretty close to being passed. And so it's so unfortunate that we're here 13 years later and it still hasn't passed. And you would think that we would have been ahead of the United States in creating equality for all. And it's just so unfortunate that we're not there. And a lot of people talk about COVID. COVID has stopped a lot of things from happening, but that's just not true. I think if it's a priority, it can still happen. And so I just also wanted to add that, and wanted to also echo some of the things that Mr. Teller had already said about we're here for everybody, and we need to be here for our LGBTQIA plus community. So thank you.
Yes, thank you both. I think those were really powerful messages. And for those who are tuning in, and I mean, I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, yes, I am so glad that there's momentum in this conversation. And you can only imagine, with the ongoing work with Indigenous Pride, with our local leaders, hopefully maybe in chapter houses and within our own families, that we can continue this conversation and find ways that we can support one another and continue to advocate, because it is definitely, past time. There needs to be continued action. And so just really appreciate both of your leadership and your voices and your messages to help push that as much as we can. So next, we're going to go ahead and switch gears a little bit and kind of hear about some more of the details of the work that each of you do and how you got there. So I would be curious, Arlando, if you can share the experiences and skills that you will bring to your new leadership role at the Department of Transportation. There may be people tuning in. I'm not an expert in DOT, and would just love to hear kind of what are some of those experiences that will fit really well with what you're going to be tackling for the next few years.
Thank you for that question. As you're asking me that question, just a lot of pages are flipping through my head on how I got here. I don't believe there are accidents. I think there are stream in the consciousness that that we dream and we follow that dream. I know it sounds kooky, but let's go start with where I started. I came home in 2010. Worked for Navajo DOT and as a transportation planner, and then was promoted as a airport department manager, then to deputy director. From those opportunities, I was recognized by the governor of the state to be on the state transportation board. And so I was the second Native to be on that state transportation board member. And then getting my feet wet in the politics of how districts get their projects on the state transportation improvement plan was very important. Then I remember what my mother said when she brought me back. She said, Shiaja, you've experienced all these things. You've traveled the world. All those experiences, you put it in your basket. She said, I want you to come home and pour it on the ground and stand on it and help us get out of the mud. And so I decided to run for office. I wasn't successful the first time. Then the second time, I got a call from then Representative Winona Benali, who encouraged me to take her spot, and I did. And it was for me at the time, personally and professionally, a risky decision. But boy, you know, I don't want to live through life with regrets, the what ifs. I don't want to live through life and saying, I should have ate that then, you know, just order it and eat it and enjoy it and work it off later, I think. So with my 26 years of transportation experience, 10 plus of those are tribal, direct tribal transportation experience. I started working and campaigning for Mr. Castro, Julio Castro, I'm sorry. And, you know, did really good work with him, provided input to his tribal transportation and tribal involvement white paper. And then when that horse fell off the presidential trail, I had Mr. Bloomberg come reach out to me and started a tribal engagement program with him in the state of Arizona and in the Four Corners. And that went really well. We had a Yago Bloomberg t-shirts and all that. And then that horse fell out of the race. And the Biden group came up and I said, no, my horses have fallen out. No, thank you. But thank you anyway. And I was very gracious about that. And a couple of weeks later, I was with my mentor. I was at Jack's house, and we were just relaxing on a Friday afternoon. And I get a call from the Bloomberg team asking if I'll be interested in opening for Cher. And of course, exactly, I saw your face.
I'm like, the Cher?
The Cher, yes. And I was like, record scratch. I'm like, excuse me? Yes, Mr. Teller, we are so excited if you could be our guest to open for Cher. She's coming in this weekend for a small group of donors and for our volunteers, and we can't give you the location just yet. But you have, I know, Cher with a big exclamation mark. And we want to know because your name has come up on so many occasions. So we're hoping that you say yes. And I said, of course, honey, I was calm.
There's no way. Oh.
Calm, cool, and collected over the phone. But you know, this queen on the inside was screaming. And so I said, yes, I would love to do this. It's a great opportunity. Okay, thank you. We will contact you tomorrow, an hour before the event, so we can share with you the location. I said, okay, great. Got off the phone and I'm screaming, queen. And Jack and his husband, DB, were like, what? You know, and so long story short, I was there. And number one, I thanked all the volunteers that worked in the state of Arizona for Biden. I talked about how Navajos and Native Americans in general are really pushing for a 85% turnout, you know, and that was a number that it just came to mind, but in all reality, it was 89% turnout from Native American communities in the state of Arizona. And I think it's reflected throughout the nation that Native Americans want to change. And so that being said, introduced her, I was so nervous.
Oh my
So
gosh.
nervous. So nervous. But I did the job, and we got it going, and it was just phenomenal, beautiful, beautiful human being, just absolutely gorgeous. And from there, made myself seen. I think that's really important for our young listeners and those that will be listening to this, is get involved, stay involved, be involved. If it's a situation in your community, your neighborhood, in your family, advocate, be involved, and participate. And that's what I did with the Biden transition team. And one afternoon, I was driving home from the state capitol, and I get a call, and it was a transition member asking me, if you were in this position, what would you do? And that was the best response to any interview that I gave. Driving home, I talked about what I would do if I were in a position that would elevate the issues of tribal transportation to a level that has never been. And so that was the call. And I got sick. I had COVID in November. My mom got it late November. But before we got sick, I told her, I came home, and she said, you got the job, son. This is your job. I said, no. They were just asking me in general questions. She said, no, they would just ask anybody. They asked you, they called you, you have the job. Mark my words. I said, okay. I got sick. I was in the hospital. She got sick. She was in the room next to me. She passed November 5th. But I continued with my interviews in the hospital room.
Wow.
I didn't care if I was barely breathing, but she told me I was going to get the job. On January 28th, while I was on the floor in the Capitol, I got the call, the official job offer, and I accepted. And January 28th was her birthday. So I know that crazy lady had a hand in this. So I'm going to do the best job I can for her and other women and mothers throughout Indian country.
Wow. Goodness, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm hopeful that your family was able to come together, as best as you could during COVID. And
we tried. We're trying. This pandemic has brutalized communities. It has tormented our society, and it has decimated elderlies, particularly Indigenous elderlies, the language keepers, the traditional keepers in communities throughout this great nation. In particular, in my family, we have a huge void, and we are doing our best. My sister and I, there's only two of us, my sister and I, to maintain what she wanted us to do. So this opportunity with the Biden administration is not taken lightly by me or my family. Thank you.
And anyone who tuned in, who's hearing your story now, there's a lot more understanding and belief, and people standing with you. And so just really, really appreciate sharing that. And I know that, love to hear from Jasmine, if she's still in the waiting room. Oh, there she is. Hi. In recognizing your position Already both of us had mentioned that, you are like one of the youngest to be put into this role. And so, doing a little bit more background on, how you got to this position, I think is really helpful for people who are just like, how do you even, set yourself up? We've heard from Arlando. And then now when you hear, why did you decide to go to law school? There's many people who go to law school and have different thoughts about it and what they want to actually do with that degree. And then I think something that could be helpful for people who might be thinking about it or just thinking about, higher education. If there's any key resources that you would want to highlight for students, that might be helpful too, to just, drop a few scholarships or organizations or something where people can go to find more.
Sure. Thank you, Josie, for that question. And also thank you, Mr. Teller. I'm sure you're still on. That's such an amazing story to hear. And condolences, my sincere, deepest condolences to you and your entire family. I know losing a mom is never easy. Losing a matriarch is never easy. My husband also lost his mom right before Christmas. And so that was a really tough experience for our entire family, his and my family. So I know it's not easy to be dealing with that, and to be continuing to be strong for her, I think is just a testament to how much she meant to you. And so I just wanted to share that much. Shana, Arlando, thank you for sharing that. Circling back to your question about higher education and kind of where I got here, I think it's good to kind of just think about this this whole idea of higher education in a historical sense. We talk a lot about how our grandparents were forced to go to boarding schools and how they were made to leave our reservation and their homelands, and a lot of them didn't come home, unfortunately, or a lot of them maybe decided not to come home after going to boarding school. And I think it's in that context a lot of this talk about higher education is needed. And so when you think about that history, that very violent, tragic history of our people, and you think about, well, how did we go from that to now being very strong advocates for going to school, for going to all these different colleges and campuses across the country? And so it's kind of interesting to think about that. And so when I think about it, I think about my own grandma, right? She actually never went to boarding school. All of her siblings did. But it was really interesting because she wanted to go. She wanted to learn English. She wanted that opportunity to go out and see the world. And unfortunately, she wasn't given that. She had to stay home. She was hidden from boarding school teachers who came by the house. She was forced to take care of the sheep and livestock while all of her younger siblings did go to boarding school. And so I think growing up, I kind of had that understanding in the back of my mind somewhere that my grandma is a very staunch advocate for going to college and for pursuing higher education, even though she never had that opportunity herself. And even though to this day, she still doesn't speak English, and she still does feel very left out and alienated because she doesn't understand English and because she never had that opportunity. And so I think that was kind of something that ushered me into attending college. And we talk about the different role models throughout our lives, and we talk about how different mentors play a huge role and how prayers also play a role in that. And so I think back to like my kinalta, right? And you think about how during that ceremony, your mentor ties your hair, and how during that ceremony, your mentor prays for you, and how, they mold you, right? And so it was during that ceremony that my grandma, who was a very staunch advocate for higher education, she she was my mentor. And so I think about how she molded me to be who I am. And so I think not only about her prayers during that ceremony in my life, but also other ceremonies that I've had throughout, in which she prayed for me. And I'm sure she wanted me to go off and do all of these things. And she might not have said it to me, or she might have said it in through prayer. But I think that's so powerful to remember those different times in our lives where our elders guide us without us really knowing it. And so I think about, as a young person, when I thought, oh, I want to go to college, it was never really a question. It was, I'm going, and I know I'm going, and it's just going to be a question of where. And I think that's kind of rare, right? A lot of young people don't even know if they want to go to college. But for me, it was always a question of where. And so when I got into Stanford, it was big news. It was kind of an offer I couldn't refuse. Up until that point, I had actually been planning on attending ASU. And I think just getting a full ride from Stanford was just something I couldn't say no to. And just a crazy opportunity that I just had to take full advantage of. And so my time at Stanford really just showed me, the world, kind of, just the diversity of students who attend that school, different Native Americans who attend from all across the country, different people from different cities, different countries. And then it was around that time I also started applying to law school. And so it's kind of funny why I decided to go to law school. It was also something that had always just been there in the back of my mind. As a young child, I don't know why I did this, but it's just kind of one of those things that I just know I needed to come home. Like, there was just that knowledge somewhere in the back of my mind, like, this is so important to me. I need to come home. And so even as I think I was like 10 or 12 years old, and I just had this feeling, like this gut feeling, I need to come home. And so as a kid, I would look through the Navajo Times, and I would flip to the very end to the Classic Fields, and I would look at what the needs of my community were. And so when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I would go to that Classic Field section and think, what is it that my community needs? And something that was always a need was for attorneys, for prosecutors on the Navajo Nation. And I thought, what an amazing thing to do. And there was also different openings for teachers. So I thought I was going to be a teacher for a while, but this idea of being a lawyer always just was reoccurring. And so I think just that whole experience of knowing I needed to come home and knowing I needed a good position once I came home, something that was, respectable, something that provided a lot of stability. So looking back at why I wanted to be an attorney, it was kind of funny because it was just mostly just me as a young person wanting to come home and be able to give back in a substantial way. And so that's kind of where that want and that need came from. And it's funny because even as I entered law school, I wanted to be a staff attorney for the Navajo Nation. And I was actually waiting to take the Navajo Nation bar to apply for staff attorney positions when this opportunity presented itself. So this appointment was never planned. I had never planned on running for state office. I had never planned on being a state representative. But I think when an opportunity such as this presents itself, and you kind of just ask yourself, why not me? Why not me as a young person? Why not me as a Navajo woman? My voice deserves to be heard. I have all of these credentials. And so that was my thought process, going to law school, taking on this position, and even just applying for the appointment was a big career change for me. And I actually didn't think I was going to get it, but I think that just very much thankful to the Apache County Board of Supervisors for believing in me and believing in my story and just trusting me to represent Legislative District 7. It has just been such a huge honor. And thank you, Mr. Teller, also for leaving such big shoes to fill. I hear nothing but the best of you and your work at the state capitol. So thank you also.
Yes, thank you, Jasmine.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, sorry. I forgot to mention key resources for students looking to attend law school. So the Navajo Nation partners with ASU and UNM, and so they provide this really awesome, amazing fellowship program. And at ASU, I believe it's called the Peterson Zaw Fellowship. And they basically give you $28,000 a year to attend law school. And if you pursue a certificate in federal Indian law at either university, that university will waive tuition. So you receive a scholarship for full tuition, and then you receive a second scholarship from the Navajo Nation through the Peterson Zaw Fellowship. So that's a really awesome, amazing way to go to law school. For any young person who's interested, getting into ASU can be a little competitive, but I would definitely encourage all Navajos. You know, it's a free law degree. You get paid to go to law school. It's really awesome. I think we definitely need to encourage our young people to use those resources.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for sharing those. And also sharing your story of, just taking a leap of faith and, trusting the opportunities that presented themselves. And I think that it's exciting when we talk to young people, and if they're thinking about college or not sure what they want to do yet. And I like to share that, sometimes college can be that little 4-year adventure, 2-year adventure that you spend time in high school, even middle school, prepping for, when you're working hard to get the grades, to show people through the application process that you're ready to make that commitment. And it's just a really exciting time for folks who are thinking about that. I mean, they're now in this crazy spring semester and going through a very different experience with the pandemic. And so if folks are, interested in learning about more resources or talking about different education opportunities, I know that our Indigenous Pride, we have our Indigenous Pride scholarship that's available for Navajo LGBTQ youth, and then many other resources that are shared on our website too. So there's definitely a lot out there, a lot to sift through, but many, many more people who are willing to take the time to provide the support and guidance that people are looking for. So thank you again, Jasmine, for sharing that. And so if Arlando's still here, I would just be curious, since, Jasmine did fill his seat after he was tapped by the Biden administration. And I'm guessing that you two may have had some conversations about what that transition really looks like, what to expect. So Arlando, maybe you can share some of that, maybe advice that you offered to Jasmine as she, steps into this new role.
Thank you for that question. I do recall having a moment with Representative Nygren that she is going to meet a lot of people, and that it is up to her to decide who she wants to meet with in her office. I also shared with her that your word is gold. Integrity is very important, not just in the chambers, but in life. When I say that I agree to support El Rey on the Equality Act, he and everyone else behind him hear that and expect that. The moment I step away from my word to him, man to man, man to woman, man to person. My integrity has blemished. He will no longer believe in me. And that is hard to gain back. And so I shared with her that your word is gold, and use it very carefully. And also shared with her to be herself as a strong Danessa. That is important to understand that we have a lot of issues here in Legislative District 7, and that we're only scratching the surface. We're only vocalizing only just a tiny fraction of what we really need. And I also shared with her that there are a lot of people who do not and will not agree with her, but that shouldn't stymie her efforts. I think that's really important to know and share with my younger brothers and sisters that are listening, that you will meet a myriad of characters throughout your life. And it's up to you in your light to filter out those characters that you already know. It's called a gut feeling. You already feel and know that you should not be around. You already know through your teachings of your family, your mom and your dad, your grandparents. And so I've shared that with her, and also shared that enjoy it, have fun. This is a phenomenal opportunity. You have to enjoy this opportunity to the full. I did. I've made so many life friends out of my colleagues, both aisles, Democrat and Republican, where I can say anything to them and get away with it. Because they've already know my personality, jovial, yet stern, upfront and forthright. So I've made really good friends, and I'm still friends with them. We still communicate on a daily basis. In fact, Jasmine, when you have a chance, say hello to J-Lo for me. I just adore Representative Jennifer Longden. I call her J-Lo. And she's the assistant minority leader, wonderful woman. As I said, just enjoy it. So I think she is. I hear wonderful remarks and comments about Ms. Nygren, and I'm very proud of her. In fact, I believe there's more to come out of this young lady. So mark my words here, we're gonna see a lot more coming out of Ms. Nygren, and I will be there to support her in every effort that she's going to do, because we need to put a light on these shining stars and help them regardless of their situation and their education. So with that, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And for a second there, I thought you were dropping another name, J-Lo. I was like, oh.
Well, I met Diana Ross. Who else did I met? Sally Field.
Oh my goodness.
Boys to Men.
Wow.
Britney Spears. Oh my gosh.
Britney
Yes.
Spears. Okay.
Yeah. At the Sanctuary Resort down in Paradise Valley. Yes.
Wow. I feel like we need another roundtable discussion just to talk about
we're gonna kiki and gossip and have a wonderful time with that. I'll take off my sports coat and all this jewelry, and we'll have a really good time.
Oh, love it. So we're good. If people are still tuned in on Facebook Live, if you have any questions, feel free to type those out. We have people keeping an eye out, so we want to make sure that you have a chance to engage in that way. But we do have a few minutes before we have to wrap up. So I want to ask Jasmine another question, and then maybe we can go to some of the Facebook questions that are coming up too. So Jasmine, so I understand that you're very passionate about improving access to healthcare and education. And from the advice that you got from Arlando and the the few weeks, maybe it's been a month now of your experience there. What partnerships and collaborations do you plan to establish or strengthen to increase this access, or to draw more attention and create some change? Those are really big issues to tackle, but just want to give you some time to talk about that.
Okay, there it goes. So I just first of all would like to thank Mr. Teller for his advice. And yes, we have had conversations where he has told me some of those things with me and has shared with me his own advice. And I can only just, soak up what I can. He did a phenomenal job as our state representative. Sorry, like I said previously, we only hear good things about him when I'm at the Capitol. And I think he had an amazing working relationship with people on both sides of the aisle, which, as you know, in Arizona is a really hard thing to do, in that the Republicans are in the majority in both the House of Representatives and in the Senate, and also our governor is a Republican. And so to get anything done in Arizona, you need the help of Republicans. And so Mr. Teller just did a really awesome job in creating relationships with Republicans across the aisle in both the House and in the Senate, and with the governor. And so when I talk about big shoes to fill, he really did leave big shoes to fill. And so I'm very thankful for those relationships that he fostered. And I just look forward to just building those. And it's really interesting because I think sometimes when you watch the news or when you watch certain things about Republicans, we kind of all want to believe that they're like these crazy conservatives who are like racist and homophobic, and like that they're just like really rude, right? But I think when you meet them and you get to talk to them, you realize that they're all human. They are elected officials. They're politicians. And so I think that when we talk about Republicans being like these scary monsters, they really aren't. And so I think that's something that needs to kind of be spoken about, be talked about here tonight, is that we do need their help in everything that we do. And unfortunately, we are in the minority. And until we can reach a Democratic majority in Arizona, we really can't do much without them. And so I just kind of wanted to start off by saying that, and also that, beginning and fostering relationships with them is very important. And so when we think about increased access to healthcare and education, you really have to begin with building relationships with people on both sides of the aisle. And so I think at least for this session, I've been really focused on fostering and taking care of bills that Mr. Teller had introduced. And so that's kind of been my priorities, at least for now. And so as we go into budget talks and negotiations, Mr. Teller's road appropriations have definitely been at the top of my list. I think as an appointed representative, it's only fair that you honor the work of your predecessor. And so that's been my biggest priority being here. And so while it's important that I will continue to work on healthcare and education in the future, I think at least for this session, I'm just primarily focused on making sure that Mr. Teller's bills get through. So I just wanted to say that much. And also just in the future, definitely looking forward to working on those two issues. And I think another thing to point out is that, healthcare and education, those are two huge Democratic priorities in the state of Arizona and nationally. And so when we talk about, when we talk about, what's going to happen in the future with those, we'll think about we will continue to be looking at both the state and the national levels to look at, how we will increase, access to healthcare and education.
Mhm.
When we talk about education in Arizona, it's one of the biggest priorities for the Democratic Party. And so working with both sides of the aisle is so important. And then also working with Democrats to increase their goals and to shine light on what they're doing as well. So being involved in like the Red for Ed movement, attending their events has been important. So those are just some of the things that I've done here as a legislator.
Yes. Well, thank you. And I'll be continuing to watch and cheer you on and find the best ways to be supportive, as you're, growing into that role and, getting some movement, momentum behind those laws that are being introduced. And I do want to be mindful and respectful of time. I know that I have so many more questions that I could ask each of you, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface here. But we want to make sure we have some time for the video from Madam Secretary Haaland. So before we get there, let me go ahead and ask a question from the Facebook. From the Facebook. I'm aging myself here. From Facebook. And then if you have any closing remarks that you want to share before we turn to the video, you can wrap that all together. So one of the questions we have is, this will be for both of you. What advice can you give now to the one Native LGBTQIA plus youth who is watching right now? Some advice that you would want to give.
One of the things I would share with that LGBTQI youth would be to be who you are. Don't diminish your light. Stay strong, and know that there are people around you that love you and care for you. And that loving yourself is very important. First and foremost is that you need to love yourself. And so from there, the sky's the limit. If you can express yourself, love yourself, and don't diminish your light, and continue with your goals, I think that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, and thank you, Mr. Teller, for that explanation. And so one thing that I always tell young people is to just be proud of who you are and know that you're not alone. You're not the only one out there who's struggling. I think we as people of color, people who are LGBTQIA, it's so important to remember that you're not alone, that we're in this, that you have resources, that you even have this huge community here supporting you, the Net Pride. I think that's huge. I think that's so amazing that you have, that there is this huge, immense amount of pride for this community, and that there's strength in this community. And so I would just say that much to our young LGBTQIA people who are listening. Be strong, be who you are, and love yourself. Thank you.
Yes, thank you both for offering those words of advice and encouragement. Thank you so much for taking the time to join Net Pride this evening for this conversation. Like I said, there's so much more that we could talk about, and hopefully maybe we'll be able to have another roundtable conversation and invite some more folks to join. But I truly found your perspectives and commitment to our people very uplifting and super inspiring. So I just want to thank you for your work. and, for forging the paths and opportunities for our future generations. And I think something that really needs that extra thank you is also to your families and to the loved ones who support, encourage, and who pray for you to continue your leadership journeys. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your words and your experiences. And as we start to wrap up here, for those who are still tuned in, just want to put out that reminder that Indigenous Pride 2021 is happening. It'll take place in June of this summer. You can go to our website for more information. You can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. We've already have a nice little outline of what to expect during the celebration. So please check in with our online platforms to see what's coming up. So now we'd like to play a video from Secretary Haaland, who supports our work at Indigenous Pride and is a true advocate for equality and equity in all of our communities. So we'll go ahead and get that started now. And again, thank you all for joining us this evening, and hope you stay tuned for future opportunities to engage in our work here at Indigenous Pride.
Hello, everyone. I'm Deb Haaland, representative for New Mexico's 1st Congressional District and proud member of Laguna Pueblo. I'm honored to be with you all during Indigenous Pride's Indigenous Leadership Roundtable. I'm especially grateful that Indigenous Pride continues their great work during a time that presents immense challenges. My heart goes out to your community and everyone who may have lost a loved one due to this terrible, terrible virus. It's incredibly important that we continue our work safely and with the utmost care to protect our elders and the knowledge that they carry. This event is a testament to that commitment and to ensuring that we are caring for everyone in our communities. As a member of the Equality Caucus in Congress, we continue our work advocating and standing up for equal rights and equal protection under the law for all of our communities, no matter their background, gender identity, or who they love. We're only a few weeks into the 117th Congress, and the Equality Act is already making its way to the House floor. This bill will amend existing civil rights laws to ban discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, including in employment, housing, credit, public accommodations, education, and more. Representation matters. A bill like the Equality Act would not have been possible without the voices of the LGBTQ+ community coming forward to share their stories, bringing discrimination lawsuits to the highest courts in the land, and fighting for equality. It's a movement that's decades and decades in the making, and I know we stand on the shoulders of generations of activists. I'm proud to say that some of my colleagues in the U.S. House are open about their sexuality, and our country has broken many barriers for the transgender community. This last election, there are now trans lawmakers in many levels of government, and I look forward to supporting trans visibility and leadership whenever I have an opportunity. I commend all of the leaders who are at this event and all of the speakers who have shared their experiences and the future leaders who are realizing their power. It's my hope that you take the inspiration from this event to every facet of life. Representation matters in every space: healthcare, technology, business, government. I'm here to support you, to learn from you, and to fight for you. Be fierce.